Goes live. Okay, I'm gonna load this page up again.
Whoa.
Should be something live right now. Yes, there is. I'm gonna share this.
Think that solves our problem?
There it is. I think you did it, man. I even heard you say it. Yes. All right. Now,
You were looking at it on YouTube?
yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Actually, just seen our high five. It's like a 5 second delay or
That's
something.
fine.
Let me try to share this real quick.
That
Yeah,
is
share
insane.
to message. And I know I can't send it to you. I'm gonna try to send it to you in your thing. I know you can't look away because it'll do weird stuff, but I'll put it in our profile so that people can view it.
You have no idea what that took.
Not even close. You'll never know. I really do appreciate the struggle though, because it came out looking great, so I can't even get upset about. I was like, I know once when Neil gets.
You're for sure looking at it on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I literally because I was like when I exited out, I was like, oh high five, and then like 5 seconds later, it was like clap.
All right, 'cause that's my phone.
All right, let me. I'm gonna make a few posts here. Let everybody know where to find it at. No, let's do this
Whoa,
one.
Jet. Whoa, Jet. I realized that.
Oh.
What time? What?
That was 20.
Was it hockey started in 2006?
That was yeah. That was 28 to 20, like 10.
Good times.
Yes, it was. That was probably one of the best times I've ever had in school, like in general. So I really do appreciate
living
that.
in Nelsonville. Huh?
Oh man, Nelsonville. We still haven't left Nelsonville. What are you talking about? Just that's the whole joke. It's like you're just stuck there forever. Like you're mentally stuck in Nelsonville.
Not me, but...
No, not really. That was just a joke. You know, like it's the sickness. When you get sick there, everybody gets sick with you. Yeah, mentality slows down a little bit. It was it was a fun ride.
I did like riding my bike down in that area. I still have a lot of good friends that are teaching there, so
That's good. Yeah, so let me finish this so we can get started. If y'all tuning in right now, thank y'all so much. We really, really do appreciate it. Apologize for the technical difficulties holding us up, but at least it looks great, right? We're remote and it looks great. You can see a video image of us. We'll try to get more of the studio in here too so you guys can see it. I got a brief tour and we'll go over that in the interview. We will go over that in the interview.
I'll just admire myself here on camera. And I will trust you if you say it's live. We're live. We're live.
We are live. That is a promise. I definitely checked it twice. I'm going to go back and check the link again to be sure.
But now it's working. So we have a phone connected to the Mac, streaming over USB cable, being picked up by the web browser because the phone is on the Wi-Fi, but the computer is hardline, so there's no Wi-Fi on the computer. So via USB, showing up on the screen browser, that's the video feed. And then the audio feed connected from one into the inbox, one into a remote mic pre with the line out coming in channel 2 of the inbox, syncing that up on the YouTube Live app on another browser window, selecting that inbox, selecting the cam twist video feed that is then taking the video feed from the web browser as a desktop application and then using that as the
camera. Yeah, if you guys can't realize that we're tech nerds, mostly Neal because he did most of that. I just watched him plug things in. I'm not going to take credit for that. But yeah, if you can't tell from that, I really don't know what more to say, just because that was we wanted to make sure it looked pretty for y'all. So I'm glad, you know, the audio's coming in good. The the video is legit. I can definitely say that. This looks legit like a podcast video. So I think that's, you know, no, it does. I think sometimes the aesthetic is nice. Like sometimes I do want it to be like nice because there's other versions. Like the one I was using when I was at my
it's no
at my parents'
studio home
It's not. It's
Home
not. But
Studio Podcast, Mega HD. Yeah, there's some really nice video feeds going on. So.
but yeah, if you could just bear with us for a second, folks. I'm just making sure
Or we
people
could
are
have just
tuning in.
recorded in Pro Tools, not gone live,
That's
recorded
very
with the
true.
DSLR, synced it up, and then pushed it out. That would have been option number 2.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with. If we couldn't get everything, I was just like, we could just record it, and I'll just tell people we're going to be
Just
remote, and I'll
record the
post it.
video.
Yeah.
So I think it's like I think like a 25 gig SD card in that. That's the DSLR. Yeah, so but the DSLR would not show up on the computer, and every website like you plug in the USB cable, and we did that, and it didn't show up.
And you know how those YouTube videos like to tell you, oh yeah, man, it's perfectly fine. Don't even worry about it. You just you just do this, and then it'll work, and everything will just magically work. Like, but it never works that way. So it's always another 30 to 3 hour long process of things you got to do. It's like, yeah, man, just plug that in, download these 2 applications, and it'll be running just fine. Like,
Damn, it works.
there it
Good
is.
for
Like,
me.
just go ahead, make sure
Well,
it
that's the
is.
whole joke about music technology. The whole thing's troubleshooting.
Yeah.
It's all signal flow. And
You think it's like, oh, everything's plugged in. I got the power cord in, the laptop's on, application. I mean, the DAWs is open, working. The microphones are plugged in, got the phantom power. Let's just press record. No sound. How is that possible? It says that it's plugged in. It says it's the preferences of the sound, like the sound preferences, all that. It's just,
no.
Yeah. We are live, and now you guys can hear it. There's actually one person in here, so thank you for tuning in. I think it's me, actually. That's the joke. There it is. But yeah, well, thank you all for tuning in live to Warden's Midwest podcast. Or whenever you might tune in. But thank you so much for tuning in. We're remote at the moment. Normally we stream live from Black Couch Studios, located at Workshop 4200 in Northwest Chicago. But today we are in we are in actually in Capital University right now. And is this the media arts department, or how is that exactly?
This is the Convergent Media Center. You're in Studio F.
Okay.
Is the full
Convergent Media Center, Studio F. Yeah. That's where we are. I was given a brief tour earlier. I'm going to say a little bit about Professor Neal Schmitt, because he is a professor to me, and he's actually one of my mentors. Like, randomly, when I have music I'm working on or projects, I always throw stuff his way randomly every few years or so, or keep up with him on social media and stuff, and always give him shout outs, because if it wasn't for him, I would not be as good at audio as I am. That's just the easiest way to say that. Or as talented at audio as I am, which some people have given me credit for. And I'm like, well, if you knew who my professor was, there was no slacking, there was no mediocrity. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us today.
No,
really do appreciate
We're
it.
up and running.
Yes, we are. We are up and running finally. So we got it good. Once again, I'm gonna shout out Neal for doing that. He actually set up everything. He's the I don't know what your title is. What is your title actually at
Instructor of Music Technology is the total. Yeah.
There it is. So
yeah.
Shout out to the instructor of music technology at Capital University's Convergent Media program. Is that what it's called?
Well, this is the Convergent Media Center. We have a music technology program. We have a film and video program. We have a communications program. We actually have a Convergent Media major and a Convergent Media minor. So there's a lot of things that are all like, there's bits and pieces housed here.
Okay. Okay. That's cool.
And there's also things like criminology and sociology
that deal within this building.
Yeah,
that are Convergent Media. It's funny. The moment that technology started to boom in some of these social networks, is kind of when I was still in school after already graduating from. Where there's going to be a lot of background on this for everybody that doesn't know, just because me and him have known each other for 10 years. We've known each other for 10 years, so there's going to be a little bit. But just to give you a brief escape, so. After I graduated from the media production program, or the music production program at Hocking College, 2010, I went to OU and began getting involved in sociology. And as I saw how the technologies that we learned could assist in sociology so well. Like, without just having, obviously, the math and the science behind it, you need to do theories for that and do practices, studies, blah, 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 field studies, case studies, all that stuff. But the technology, knowing social media, like, you can literally just research trending topics. You can research different areas and see exactly what type of information or sources they're using, all that stuff. it's easy to do it via, instead of using Google to like, oh, let me contact this university and contact, like you can literally just, what's this like what's the most popular hashtag today? You know what I mean? Like, or the most popular hashtag regarding these issues. Like, let's start there, you know? And I was like, wow, this is exactly the same thing. Like, this is like, in obviously music can go somewhat into that. You can, I've found a way to use it in my art form, but um I definitely saw the benefit of that. So to see, is this the only program doing that currently in Ohio, or is there other ones that you're
I
aware
mean,
of?
I don't know. I'm focused on what we do and what we do
There it
well,
is.
so I don't know. And there's definitely some interesting, even merging those areas even more. I mean, we're trying to figure all that out and how it
Okay.
can be done. So, I had, we did a Me Too and music scene,
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
panel discussion,
Yeah.
right? So it's nice to be able to walk down the hall and grab one of those sociology, like, will you moderate it? Because I can't,
Yeah.
like, shouldn't be the white male moderating. I could be a guest or I can give my input, but I really don't want, like, so that having that, and that worked out great. It was really interesting. And then bringing musicians who then, with a different voice. I mean, that's just one example of how that's worked really
That's
good.
awesome. Yeah, that's, man, that's like that's where I saw it working at. Like, so many people would look at me and say music and sociology. Like when I first did, like, how is that gonna? I'm like,
Yeah.
and I would like not even have to go out. I was just like, just watch. It will. I was like, trust me. And it's nice to see that I actually, like, like my mind was working at the same level of academia.
Well, and then, I mean, everything from, something that was a big part of the program that we were a little ahead of our time on was the idea of podcasting. Now it's, I mean, ridiculously huge, like as far as the skill set, being able to bring whatever topic, whatever niche that you want to, if you have an interest in that topic, probably someone else does, and maybe only a small audience, but it may be a very, very devoted audience.
Yeah.
So there's ways to dive into topics like that. I mean, this is another example of what you do right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so that then from other things that you've done and can do, from maybe it's promoting an event for a cause,
Yeah.
right? Well, okay, I'm you know maybe you're the musician, but okay, well, we're going to need sound and
Mm-hmm.
lights and security and tickets and promotion and social, like
There's
all these
like
things.
literally 30 jobs for one
Right,
event.
right. But it could be, like maybe I just want to do an event because it's an event, or maybe it's an event
Yeah.
for a particular cause, and you can really marry all those things together. I mean, and do it because it's cool, or do it because it needs to be done.
Most definitely. Well, just to give everyone a brief background on just to give everyone a brief background on Neal. I know a lot about him, but you may not. So I kind of wanted you to go over maybe not your full history, but you know what? Yeah, do your full history. Like what got you involved in music and audio, like even if it was in your adolescence, and then how that led
Yeah,
into you getting into academia
I'll
and
go
maybe
quick, but I
yeah.
mean, for me, it started with playing drums in high school and cassette multi tracks and uh, having just the cool relationship that music brings. Whether it's band or audience or whatever. And then, so that took me to working in Columbus in studios. Then I started a studio. So I ran a studio for 10 years, and that was awesome. And then needed a little bit more stable lifestyle, and that got me into teaching,
Mm-hmm.
um, which then still got me access to the studio and the gear, and I could talk, and that all was really quickly how that all came to be. And pretty soon, 20s, 30s, 40s, 20s living in the studio and on the road playing in a band, 30s, transitioning between that lifestyle and something a little bit more steady. And
Mm-hmm.
then, the idea of education for me has where I've found a place that, you know, I can have dinner with my family. That kind of stuff. So.
Most definitely. Well, it's funny. I'm actually transitioning into something similar right now. I'm looking to start a family. Kind of walking in, you, Josh, George, and so many other professors at Hawking's footsteps, and literally hearing your journeys, and then coming to those crossroads and saying, "Oh, this is where they were at. Okay,
I
that's
watched
cool."
George playing his gigs in Florida. I'm like, man, he's in like short sleeves.
Right. It's like,
awesome.
I think I lost this hand, but it's okay. Like, but I think all of you, to the students that were listening in that program, gave all of us different elements of how a blue collar musician looks, or blue collar audio expert looks. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
we got that. Like, so I've been in all those worlds already. I've been in academia thanks to you and Josh and a few other people who have allowed me to uh come in and tell my story, but
Mm-hmm.
also give a little history regarding if it's sometimes it's been hip hop history or it's been audio history or the the lifestyle of a today's musician, Um so I'm very grateful for that. I've also been able to be involved in radio, like I was saying, via a really good friend of mine. He just helped me get involved at UIC Radio. I was on there for, like I said, like 4 or 5 years and was
Mm-hmm.
able to do actual radio there, get in touch with all the, university and college radio stations in Chicago as a result of it. So that was beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because that's still paying off. Even if I'm not benefiting, like the community at large can, like, hey, do you know where I can showcase my music on a larger platform? Of course I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good, exploration there, and I've been still performing the whole time. So I went out, been out to San Francisco most recently, planning to go to New York really, really, really soon. Obviously Columbus and Chicago continuously, and I'm just like looking to see where my market is at and how that looks realistic with how I want to play my life out. Like I wouldn't mind at this point. I would not mind being a person that performs from time to time and like has like somewhat of a cult following in some areas where someone just shows up, but also like being that person. Like I like hearing a full body of work produced, so I like the song, you know what I mean. I love doing that part, so that's becoming more real for me as well. So I really want to thank all of you for that, but most definitely you, because you were the director of the department during the time. So if it wasn't for you, a lot of
Well,
that
yeah,
wouldn't
I mean,
have took
there's a
place.
lot of people. I mean, Josh, obviously you mentioned Josh.
Oh
He's a
yeah,
big
of
part,
course.
and everyone who chipped in, and I mean, there's so many great people, and depending who was there when you were there, but you know, it's. But I will, on behalf of everyone, I will accept the compliment. How about that? Is
Thank you.
yeah, and then the idea of the blue collar, like, it just is, like there's a lot of kind of, whether it's realistic or you know, there's going to be a Lady Gaga,
Yeah,
and
of
then there's
course.
going to be 1,000 other people who are not,
Lady Gaga
but they all can have very successful,
careers. That was
and
one of the most powerful things Josh ever said to us, I think. And I say this to every group of musicians I interact with when they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to get the $1 million deal or get this or sell this many tickets to this show specifically to start getting ourselves with some momentum." And I'm like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Realize that like the size of your team and like you define your own level of success, which I think he stole from like Malcolm Gladwell or someone else. But like that phrase resonates so hard in my life because I've gotten to the point now where I know that I'm really talented. I know that I have the opportunity to be really successful, but like we said, some of those things, like how they happen, is after the skill, the knowledge, and everything that you've got. It's luck. You running into someone, them wanting to invest in you, or them wanting to direct you to the right people. There's a little bit of luck involved, because sometimes you might run into the right person, not at the right time.
right.
You know. Um, but yeah, those are really powerful messages, and I appreciate you sharing your story. So what led you to Capital University?
Yeah, good question. I actually applied to a different job here. um, some of it was just proximity. So, I was driving an hour and 10 minutes each way to hockey, and just didn't want to make a commitment to move down to Athens or move down that area. So, I actually applied to a different job, and but luckily someone had slid my resume over to someone else, and like, you should look at this person, and that's how they kind of found me, and it worked out. So I'm in my fifth year here.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been great. So this building is we're going into our fourth semester, so not still about a year and a half into the building. When I landed here, this was one of the reasons that they brought me, because they knew that this part was going to expand. Um, so we have other studios. We've got a large format analog console with a 16-track analog machine, which is awesome. We've got a smaller Studio B. Studio C is kind of a mastering suite. Studio
Mm-hmm.
D is now a live sound practice space. Um, Studio E is a really nice overdub space, but we use it still for tracking. And then Studio F, which you're in here, so about 3,000, no, 2,500 square feet, 3,000 square feet. I forget what the square feet, 1,200. I don't remember what it is now.
Okay.
But that, so coming in and helping to design this, Chad laid out the patch bay and how it was all, we picked all the gear, looking at the walls and moving stuff in and making room for drum sets and storage space and all that kind of stuff. And we're super happy with what we got. It sounds awesome in here.
It looks
That,
really nice. We're gonna take Neal's phone probably at the end of his interview and just kind of give you guys a brief little virtual tour. It's this looks like where you should be learning at, or where some random BB King, or even though he's passed away, but some random big, musician of that caliber should be coming. Stevie Wonder, even, like, they come by Columbus. It's like, why wouldn't they stop by a studio like this? I don't think there's too many more large studios like this in the city outside of like OSU or something.
There's some great studios in Columbus. Relay Recordings doing their thing. Sonic Lounge, of course.
Oh yeah,
got a great studio. Rare Sound still kicking. John Schwab. So there's some good, and then there's tons of smaller studios.
Yeah.
Orange Studios, another one. But yeah, we're lucky, but our main focus is not to compete with those studios. Our main focus is the education of our students, and the community gets to benefit because they get to come in and record. But we're very careful to not step on other studios' toes
about who's coming in here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we've had one or two bands push students and like, hey, can we do more songs, and pretty soon they've cut a record, and you're like, you know what, you just took a record
from some studio, that was going to get that business.
So we put some restrictions on our students, and the studios in town don't really know that. We don't really, hey, we're trying to help you, but we're very conscious that
just because you guys, a few of you specifically have been in that seat before,
and we want the community to benefit. Great place to demo your songs with our students. Our students play our stupid town and play in a ton of great bands, so they get the access, So, but they're here. The bands have formed usually when they're here. All that's happened. So I don't feel that those projects are being taken from a studio, right?
Yeah.
If all that didn't come together, that band may not exist, right?
Yeah.
But when you have some bigger bands, like we want to be very careful that we're not taking a project that would go to Sonic Lounge and it's going to come here, because we're not going to charge them because it's an educational facility. But so we're very deft with what we do,
Yeah.
So
that's really good.
It's part, because our big part is, yes, we are part of the Columbus community, and we really, so we do events here. We did a big tech garage sale just recently, so we dug through all and people got great deals, and since that may or may not be working, but some guy who knows how to fix them was buying them all up, and just stuff that we found. So we brought other people in the community. We'll do the Creative Arts Workshop in March 23rd, which is a Saturday, where we've had Fleming Rasmussen, who produced the first couple of Metallica records. Here, RJD2, who's back.
Shout out RJD2. I never met him personally, but while I was at school for Hocking, I reached out to him to work with him probably like 4 or 5 times.
Well, he's a great, so he licensed this. Well, he sold this Mad Men theme song. He didn't license it. So it was really interesting talking to him. So he got a one-time payment instead of every time that played on the air. So he got a big chunk up front, but he didn't see money like on and on and on and on. So but it was all right. He when he did that, he didn't know it was going to be a hit.
Yeah, of course.
You take your, like, wow, you're going to pay me that much money. Awesome. If it airs one time, doesn't matter. I get it. So he was last year. We had Michelle Pettinato, who's a amazing live sound engineer. She is super friendly and not bitter like a lot of live sound engineers. So anyway, we have keynotes and we do everything, workshops on, networking, guitar repair, songwriting, whatever. So, that's all free to the community. So we do that. So we're really focused on being a part of Columbus and the Columbus community.
That's really good.
It's a huge part of our mission after taking care of our students. Is being part of the Columbus community.
Most definitely. Is there anything you guys do that I know that there was I'm trying to remember, what was it, Hocking? There's like a organization devoted to helping like musicians that are impoverished get like healthcare and all these different things. Like, is there any like type of community involvement you do with them? Like, so it's like, okay, if you work through them to get, your healthcare and everything, we'll see about getting you access to some time or something like that.
Yes.
If they can't afford it.
So one of the things you're referring to changed with Obamacare, because
oh man, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Wow.
So with that, like, people could get
healthcare at least.
But that's one of the reasons that I got to teaching, because there was no Affordable Care Act. So with my wife didn't have benefits, I it was outrageously expensive. So
Yeah.
like the landscape is different now because of the affordable, despite attempts to, and I don't know how much those have harmed it, but me carrying insurance without a job was not really possible in 2006 and 2000. That's
Yeah.
why one of the reasons I had to find teaching.
Mm.
Um, so to your point, like we get involved with a couple different organizations. We do have an audio engineering society and a music women in audio music clubs that also are affiliated with things and do both things out in the community and for
Hmm.
charity and stuff like that. So concerts and things like that. So
Okay.
yeah, there's a number of different things that kind of creep up that way.
That's awesome.
But yeah, the Affordable Care Act changed the landscape for a lot of musicians, and I don't know how much study's been done on that, but it would be really interesting to know.
Jeez, this is where, man, if I just had people to fund me to do things, I could just do so many things.
Sure. Now you've aged out, but even because if your parents have insurance, now Affordable Care Act lets you take insurance until you're 26, let you be on your parents' health insurance.
Yeah.
So finishing a degree, you're 22, 23, somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
there, like that's still a couple years where you don't have to take the first job with benefits. Like it
Yeah.
gives you a little bit of leeway to figure out what that is. Now you have student loans and other things going on, but it is a nice, which that was not an option.
Well, yeah, when you guys were, it was like straight from school, like pay us our money back from the, yeah. I guess, yeah. There are more options. That is one thing I'll say. I know that the landscape is almost entirely different just because so many things are popping up one after another. But there are more options for us, which I didn't even think about that literally as a whole, situation that developed.
That's called adulting.
Right. Super hard adulting.
Well, yeah, because it's not things that you think about, and for most, you kind of alluded to multiple revenue streams. You're doing multiple things, so you know, you can be for a while not be sick, but I mean, I bartered studio time with one band. The drummer was a dentist.
Smart.
I hadn't been to the dentist in years.
And there you go. Like,
what?
yeah.
What would it cost me? I'll give your band. And then
yeah.
my partner, John, was like, and me.
Immediately, so I can go to the dentist.
Yeah, what would it cost us? And we'll give you equivalent, dollar in the studio. Because it's not really costing me, if my studio time's $45, it's not really costing me $45. But it was really cost them.
Yeah.
Just as the dentist office doesn't really cost me $300, but so it was a win-win,
Yes,
so
it is.
I really was getting, if my take is on $20 an hour, I was getting a $300 dentist visit for $150 or something.
That, my friends, is called creative exchange. Write it down and use it for everything outside of just creative like exchanges. Because like technically, okay, a dentist is an artist. I'll give you that. They are artists because you can't just I would not. You don't want to give me the drill to make your teeth look like that picture over there because I wouldn't be able to do it. Right? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, craftsman. Yeah. But there's a bit of bit of creativity in that realm, especially in being a doctor too. You're configuring someone's insides. Yeah. But yeah, that makes sense though. I don't think I've ever used it like that, but that makes sense to like look like not prevent yourself from doing that because like, oh well, that's not exactly how I want that, so I'm not going to do it that way because are they going to uphold?
That would be web page design.
Yes. Web page design, coding. Please look into the coding of your website.
And, people shouldn't do stuff for free, but in that case, and that's kind of a particular unique case, but at the time, the dentist for studio dollars, but we've used that for other things, building the website prior to me having that kind of background. In the '97, like it was the Wild West where they knew like silly. I still hand code a lot, but there's a lot of other ways to develop that. Right? But we did. I don't think we bartered for our TV commercial. We made a 30-second TV commercial that we aired for a number, like I think it was like a 6-week. It's ridiculously expensive, inexpensive to do a cable TV commercial. But I think we might have paid him. But a photographer we bartered. There's a lot of stuff that went into that process. Even when we were building the studio, learning to the person that helped us frame it. We ended up working on that. Basically, it was he taught us to frame. We didn't know what we were doing in the studio, and then when we're done, like work on the record until you're done. Like you don't have to pay a dime. Like
Yeah.
it takes a year. It takes a year. It takes 6 months. And eventually they got signed by uh, two other labels, but went on to that record helped them get signed to Universal. So like
Congratulations. That's awesome.
and then John, my partner, ends up going on tour to run front of house from that band. But
There you can see that. Yeah.
4 years, 5 years, like it was a long. No one knew anything
It was going to happen. It's like the investment up front is like you got to be able to make those decisions and see that longevity, or even just be prepared for it.
16 on center to frame or put in a door or a window or any of that.
That doesn't sound like anything. It's like it's carpentry and
no, but
a lot of
a couple days shadowing someone. Like here's how you do a wall. Here's how you do a window. I'll help you one more day, and then like I'll come back, and then he pulled in favor. Anyway, like there's all sorts of ways to not have to dip into money.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a wide network and you
use your network. That's one of the best things about going to school or being involved in multiple, like after school programs, going around the city and being involved in these free programs. That's how a lot of my cousins and family. Yeah. Like if you do that, you meet so many people, like from so many different walks of life. You'll know more doctors than you think. You need a second opinion, contact them directly, if they're cool enough with you.
Yeah, and you may not get it for free, and you may not even get it reduced, but it'll be someone that you trust.
Yes.
And there's something to that too.
Because you know them outside of the doctor's office. Like them like, oh, I know his kids and like, his or her kids.
I ever abused it, and I can't speak because I don't remember every single thing where I tried to get people to do stuff for free.
Mm-hmm.
And I even remember there was a band, and they were on Warner Brothers, and there was a lot of like, we need to get the masters, we need to get the record mastered, and it was like, well, you have a balance. He's like, all right, I'll pay you, but I need to get the masters. And they're like, okay, I understand, but I'm not releasing the masters
until you give me them. Yeah.
And they were walking off, and my partner was talking, like, he was saying all these things as they stormed off. And the guy's like, dude, business, man. Like,
period.
So, and for that, like, we never gave discounts at the studio either when I was running the commercial studio. Like, everyone paid the same rate. So
period, yeah.
Oh, you get us one rate, and because everyone talks, and the community is small.
And then you'll figure out, and then someone will be like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm not. Yeah, there's all these complications come up.
Studios, still clients, because they're like, we'll do it for less. You're like, I can do it for less, man. I can't do that because if I give Terrence, it's supposed to be $50 an hour, but I'm going to give it to you $35 an hour, and then the next band comes in and I charge them for $50, and like, you only charge, it doesn't take long. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm in this thing where now I've got to give them the rate, and now your new rate's $35 an hour.
Yep, your rate.
You're hoping some sucker will pay $50, and then once they find out they were the sucker, they're not happy,
and they're not coming back.
So if as far as like fair market, be good, pay people for what they're worth.
Make sure you do. Well, I have a few more questions for you, brother Neal. So how is what is one of the greatest projects, or like one of the greatest fruits that have bared from this program?
Okay.
Or you know what? Over your entire being a professor, like some of the best things you've seen come out of it isn't even got to be a specific group or people. Well, it's like, I love that this transpired from that.
I'm having a conversation with Terrence. Like the people that. I try to be agnostic about how I feel about students, right? Because I try to treat everyone as evenly as I can. It's not possible, but I try, right? But even through that, you see who there's this bell curve, right? There's people who are great, everyone kind of pretty good in the middle, and obviously some people who you're wondering, maybe this isn't for you, right? And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But you're here, but maybe it's not for you. But the thing that I love about social media that has been is kind of playing proud papa and being like, look at that, and there's all sorts of people that I've connected with that are doing really cool things. There's a couple of people I really wish wish they get their act together and really do the things that I think they could do. But I don't dwell on that too much because
Mm-hmm.
I like those people anyway. They're doing cool things. But and I don't want to necessarily name names because I'll forget people. But there are people that have come through that I've gotten to know over
Mm-hmm.
at hockey in 2 years now, here 4 years. So I get to, some people I really get to know
Yeah.
and just want, oh, they're going to go to grad school. Oh, look at them doing that concert. Look at them doing that video. Look at, like that kind of stuff has been really cool to
That's good.
watch.
That's
People put good energy out into the world and put good work out into the world, whether it's musical, which is super cool. I see that a lot. But even if it's not related to music, and still students reach out and text me like, "Did you?" Like the BBC just released all their sound effects online, and I had one.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
One
Yeah.
or two students reach out and like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "I know."
All of their sound effects.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
that's
Planet
cool.
Earth, the
Like,
album version.
I haven't taught you for 8 years or whatever, but you're like, that I geek out about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that's cool. And there's a lot of students who are like, I'm sure don't like me either, and that's fine too.
So let me be honest. I had a hard time coming to like Neal. It took a while. Like there was no, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There were times when I'd walk in and like you weren't targeting me, but it felt that way. Life was doing things, you know what I mean? Like, and people would look around like, oh my God, you were just talking about this and it's happening right now, Terrence. And I'm like, I'm not even gonna let it happen to that. But what it really was, and I saw this in the music industry, it's not that people don't want to like certain genres or certain walks of life. It's like when you have an experience with those types of people from that genre, like I've had an experience with people from the punk rock scene in Chicago or the EDM scene in Chicago, and like they've rubbed me the wrong way, or the soul scene in Chicago and they've rubbed me the wrong way. You know what I mean? Or even for that matter, the hip hop scene in Chicago and they've rubbed me the wrong way. And I've been like, okay, that's where some of this comes from. You know what I mean? Like you have the 5 years of me being in Chicago, I have a lot of supporters who strongly support me, but there are some people who just could care less and wouldn't see me like kind of put on a face to be like cool, but every other waking moment that they have to prove like I don't really mess with you or I'm not trying to support you at all, they prove that, and like it rubs you the wrong way. Now as a professor, if you see a lot of people coming into your studio and they just so happen to be hip hop, but they don't follow any of your instructions, they don't see, this is where it comes from. And some people say, oh, it's targeted in a different way. And I'm like, sometimes it may be, but I know in the case of you, it's not. After longevity, every time I've hit you up after the fact for any reason, I remember during the time at the end of we were working on our capstone and I was doing something with one of my personal songs. You stayed in there for 45. I think you were supposed to leave and go home. You stayed in there for 45 minutes trying to help me figure out how to balance my vocals in the middle of the mix, but not take away too much bass and keep the drums hot, or keep the drums like poppy, And I was like, and that's when I sat there that day and I was just like, nah, not Neal. I was like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, nah, no one just stays here. Like, even if you're that much of a nerd, like no one just stays here if they don't want to be around someone. They would be like they would be gone. So, and I think that's what showed more than anything.
Say good luck.
Yeah, my perseverance and my ambition with that. Like I was like, you knew I was there to really learn what I said I was there to learn. Like that was never in question. You're like, all right, let me see about this kid. Okay, nah, he's really trying his butt off. He's been in here like 5 days out of 7, making sure that his mix is coming together. Like it may not have gotten where I wanted it to be. I'm the professor, but saying from your standpoint, but it definitely became something greater than it would have been had he not took those 5 days. And now, as I am where I'm at now, there's multiple studios around Chicago that contact, hey, does this mix sound okay, Terry? You think this, how I'm taking this bass out, man, it's really raspy and there's like a lot of, background noise in it. Like, but it took that. That was the beginning of my 10,000 hours. Like, I'm pretty sure I've passed that by now, but that was literally the beginning of my 10,000 hours. And I've strongly surpassed it. And I've gotten confident within my own sound now. So I have my own sound, folk hip hop, if you would, but it really has a sound that fits in it. Yeah. But yeah, and I think I've learned that just from working with you, working with Josh, still like going back and forth, and me and him created a few songs not too long ago, and well, I brought songs to him that are mixed, and I'm gonna send him more money to have them mixed like finally. But I really do like where they went, and it just is part of that confidence now. And for me being a confident performer to now being like a confident artist, I can create it from the ground up, which is another, and I would advise a lot of people to do that, even if you don't want to do that regularly with your projects. as long as you know how to navigate them, you know what to ask for of the engineer or the, the producer or whoever else may be sitting in on, the session, just so you can get the exact, what you're aiming for. Like I've been able to do that so well now. Like I'll look at the producer and be like, hey, nah, drop that. Like I don't want the drums to sound like rock band style. I want them to sound more jazzy, so like more hits or something. Like more fills or something like that. More improvisation. Like any of that stuff works, and like you just gotta find out what is most important to you. Like I'd love to perform. I do love to be behind the scenes too. So it's weird for me. It's like maybe I'll get a decision made sometime coming soon at this crossroads I keep talking about. But I love being able to play both sides of the coin at the moment. So it's really fun to be able to say, oh well, let me fix this mic stand up real quick and make sure this is running properly, and then hop in front of the stage and start performing.
So much of it's confidence issue.
Yes.
Everyone, no one thinks that anyone else is not confident, and everyone is not confident. So the idea of, well, maybe their idea is better than my idea, or maybe I should let them, and it depends on if someone else mixes the project. If you give the project to mix to someone, you should have there's this fine line, right? So if you give the project to Josh to mix, you're hiring that person because they have a particular skill set that you think can add to your project. You have to let go enough to let them do their thing, right? So that's confident in that I've picked the right person to do the right job. Not that I should micromanage them, and not that you won't give notes or feedback, but if you bring someone else into the project, you should trust your gut enough I brought them into the project, I should let them do their thing.
Most
right?
definitely.
And it can be, I was just reading actually the Thomas Dolby biography, and I think he's working with, and it was a little thing about maybe he was working with Eddie Van Halen. There's a couple interesting stories. And in the book, he's like, I'm sitting there because I want Eddie Van Halen to play guitar like he plays guitar. And Eddie Van Halen's probably like, well, Thomas Dolby probably wants me to play like keyboardy. He blinded me with science, kind of, and I can't. And both people, I want you to be Eddie Van Halen on my
record,
like. So there's that. That's a really interesting. If you bring someone else into the project, you brought that person's personality, and you need to let them shine, right? Unless it's totally like a Steely Dan thing, where like, no, you'll play the beat. I just can't play drums, but I'm going to tell you 100% what the beat is.
Yeah.
So there's another way to be involved, but most often it's not that. Right?
No, people want you to be a part of their project because they want what you can bring
what you
to
have,
it.
And then
they don't want to, and they don't want to critique. They don't want to like micromanage that and tell you to.
And then
cut down
the confidence is to be like, if you pick wrong, like, you know what, that didn't work out. Maybe there's another thing, right?
Yes.
Or the confident to say, like, thank you for your. I won't use Josh, as an example, but, thanks, Bob, for mixing my record, for mixing that song. Awesome job. Let me pay you my money and pay you what it's worth. And then you're like, that's not the mix, but now I need to go find someone else to mix it. Right. Or the confidence to just be like, this is my artistic vision, and I can put my stamp, and I'll make sure everyone, so there's kind of this fine line. I have a friend who's a really big, she teaches art. She's a really awesome person, and a lot of her art is she commissions other people to make her art. So like, I have an idea, I'm going to hire a photographer, this photographer will take this picture, but it's my art because I just couldn't. You
conceptualize that. Like, I think some people get upset about that as well. So that we're entering this era. I like that you said that, because there's a lot of musicians who are doing that now. A lot of musicians who have the face of like, oh, I'm this artist. Like, we're going to use Drake as an example, just because he's one of the more popular artists of this era, and he does exactly what you're talking about. Now, seriously, he will come in with the basic idea. Like, maybe he might not even have the production, you know what I mean? Like, or anything worked out in his head, but he's like, I want this feel, and I kind of like how that artist is doing it. He'll say that. And like, then there'll be like 3 or 4 writers in the room, maybe more than that sometime. And we'll be like, okay, well, let's come up with our best concepts. And I'm pretty sure they're all such talented artists, because I know a few of the artists that write for him. They might write an entire song to that beat, and then he'll be like, you know what? This first half of that verse in this chorus works well. And then he'll take that, and then he'll start rapping based off of what they had. Like, okay, let me add some more in here, singing, and then we get the final project, and it's Hotline Bling. You know what I mean? And then we're like, this is a dope song. And I think we're entering a new era where that's becoming more widely accepted now. in the terms of hip hop, a lot of original hip hop people would be upset about that because it's like reciting someone else's poetry. No, I mean, but you got to understand that. Like it's
People
history.
are going to
is
get
that
upset or whatever. You know,
they are.
that's
They
the
are
thing, you
most
know?
definitely. There's a that's where I'm in the middle on it. Like sometimes I'm like, no, but then when the song is right and he says exactly, or like that project comes out and it's like speaking to what I'm going through, like you can't argue with the results.
Right.
Like that's the one thing I'm like, I don't like it, but if he didn't do it, someone else would be doing it, and he does it exceptionally
like
well.
The,
So
the glass artist Chihuly, I don't know if you know that guy's art, but so it's all the same thing. Like look it up. So it's this really gorgeous, ornate colors with interesting shapes. Like he doesn't make every single piece.
He probably wouldn't have enough time to.
No, that's not possible. But he has a studio. I have an aesthetic. Here's what I want to do. And ultimately, it's going to be my name. I got the, but he couldn't get to that point unless there was, A through Y. That's step Z.
Thomas Edison did the same thing,
right,
and
right.
It's like let's. I have the facility and all of the beakers, so and all the
those
test
artists
things.
working for Drake have the ability to either do it on their own, sell their beat to someone else. I mean, there is commercial marketplace they can do, and they
most
chose
definitely
because they wanted to work with someone who's popular.
But I mean, and he's talented too. You can't deny that. Like obviously, if he wasn't talented in some regard, he wouldn't be like this generation's like pop icon. You know what I mean? Like to a degree, like him, like we were saying, Lady Gaga, him. Right. If one of them drops a song, you can very much well bet that it's going to have like tens of millions of views, like immediately. So
sure. I mean, Madonna hired, same thing, with tons of different, each record, she becomes a chameleon, whatever's how popular and stuff like that.
Just kind of mold and like merge to it, which is that's what pop music is. And it's like, if that evolves over time, so what? Like we're in an era now where the person doesn't got to be in the same room as you and can have a great mix on your song or a great verse on your song. And that's as we're entering that, I don't think we can really argue that anymore, because some people can say that it's this or that, but as it moves forward in time, like it's always going to be that. It's going to be like, well, Drake was doing it or such and such was doing it before then, because a lot of artists do that don't talk about it. You know what I mean? They just don't credit the people on there, but people just happen to catch artists like Kanye West and Drake.
They should credit. That's the
issue. That's the issue. I'm like, if they were credited, and like I think Beyonce did that with her last album, even though it was I love that album, the Lemonade album. Like it's like all these different pop genres in one album, and then she'd say like, oh yeah, I have Jack White on this song with me, or I have who else did she get on this song with her?
It's like 117.
Yeah, like or right. And it's like, crazy. But it was amazing. What the record was amazing. No one could argue with those results. It's like that was the best album of that year. Like no one could even come close. Like all those songs were like, she did a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of jazz, some country, some alternative. Like you're like, all right, you're the queen. You're the queen of pop music. Yeah. Like no one can argue that anymore. But yeah. In the same token, now that we went over like all the academic background and everything, how do you balance the life like perfectly? Like not perfectly, but how do you balance your life? He said, wait a minute. How do you as a not only as an educator, I would say an audio engineer, I guess. I don't think you want to say yourself as a musician, even though I've heard some of your music and I actually like it. I'm trying to remember the name of that band that you were in. You had like, it was like a 7/8 break that you guys put in the song.
Pretty Mighty Mighty.
There you go. Pretty Mighty Mighty.
Yeah, we were.
And but how do you balance that? I've asked this same question to Josh had me at their like annual thing for OU when Bob Boiling comes down. I think he's done it 2 years in a row now. And I asked him the same question, like, how do you balance, oh, I'm an educator right now, I'm a parent later, I'm going to be an audio engineer after that, because as I'm getting older, I am doing that, but I still find a little difficulty in like balancing.
Yeah, I whipped down, dinner with my fam before I came down here.
You guys good? All right,
kinda, yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. I mean, because I would in some ways, I'm gonna make it doesn't make noise. A good team, like my wife is obviously a huge part of that.
Most definitely.
Because and I don't know. Oh, gosh, I should know what years I was, but I think it was during some of that while you were there. I was also in grad school. So now I'm doing a 2 hour and 20-minute commute, teaching full time and going to school and having, like it's constantly tricky. And then, taking care of your own mental health is super
Most
important as well, and
entrepreneurs, please go get a therapist or have a very great friend or your priest that you talk to on a regular basis, because it is very,
well, for me,
very
it's
important.
biking, it's cycling, it's being on the bike,
Exercising, yeah, most of those things. Like I do yoga and meditation now
Yeah.
every single morning. If I don't, I can tell the difference, and it prevents me from getting angry, because I'm like, you didn't meditate today. You didn't do your little 5 minute to 7 minute yoga thing, and go do that, come back and see if this situation even matters as much as you think it does.
Yeah.
If it still does, attack it the way you need to, but if not,
all that's a huge, and the, you hate to be, I love Capital University, but if I was to leave here, like, the school is going to keep going.
Oh, most definitely.
So, so there's that, right? And when I was running the studio, like, one of the things that I sort of was ready to take orders again, because being an entrepreneur is kind of exhausting, because you just have to do everything, So, so for me, like, I was like, oh man, it'd be nice. But now I'm an entrepreneur, so I do all, like, I put tons of content on our YouTube channel and the social media channels, right? That's not written into my job.
Make sure you follow Capital U and follow Black Couch. I'll repeat that at the end, but make sure you follow Capital U, because
so
I've been following them.
Cap Muse Tech.
Cap Muse Tech. I apologize.
On Instagram, Capital Music Technology on YouTube, Cap Muse Tech, CAPMUSTECH on Twitter. So, like, that's not part of my job description, but now I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I'm an advocate for my program and an advocate for my students and an advocate for the school from within. So I can do that kind of stuff. So I have the autonomy and the freedom to do that. Should I leave, though, Capital University will keep going, right? So there's this, some of this is like, you just gotta leave it at home, I messed up something earlier on, and my wife's like, oh well, like, you'll fix it. There's nothing you can do, like, so it was a minor thing, but it was an inconvenience, So there's that, right? So then, then part of that is being a good role model for my kids, who have grown up, and they come to recitals, and we come to sports events, and thinking about college for them, and I certainly don't want them, you work too much. They get jealous when I do the study abroad trips with students and things like that. But,
I can imagine, yeah.
Right. What are you gonna?
Wait, you're going where? You're going where? We're going to London. A
lot of that dinner discussion.
We're going to London in a week.
Yeah, we're not going to Jamaica this year, which I'm bummed about. But, we went to Copenhagen, we went to Belfast, we went to Nicaragua, we go to New York City. Last 2 years we went to the AES convention. So my son's like, I've never been to New York. I'm like, you're 12. You'll be there eventually. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. Take a
breath. Right. Not that it would be fun for him, but it will certainly mean a lot more later.
Most definitely.
So there's that. So being around, trying to be home for dinner and doing things with my family, and then incorporating things into work. That's great. And then, where I used to channel all my extra energy into music. I still play drums a little bit, not as much as I'd like to, but the idea of playing and gigging and practicing is like, when would I do all that?
It's a lot,
right?
It's a lot. Like doing what I'm doing behind the scenes. I was like, I'm just going to leave you guys a hint. I'm going to be giving the Wardens back to the original owner very soon, because if I want to be a performer, I cannot do as much behind the scenes. Right. It's like impossible, or one of them is going to lack.
Yeah. So then my other outlet, then, like I said, for me and for you, the yoga and the meditation, for me, I found riding my bike, is what makes me hopefully a better person, because, like, when I'm physically exercising and I feel good about my body and I feel good about my mind, and I've had that, and sometimes for me it's going for an hour ride and not talking, because that's all I do all day long.
Yeah.
Is talk, and hopefully useful things, but it is a lot of, addressing students and talking.
Mentally exhausting. I'm gonna say, it's mentally exhausting.
So, taking off after work or starting my day, like, it's I feel good when I come in and after I worked out and I've shared, like, your blood's flowing, you've gotten, there's some anger issues, you can work out and all sorts of fun stuff. So for me, it's finding that thing. For other people, it's kickboxing or whatever it might be. There is something,
going for a run or there's multiple different ways you can do it. Yeah,
miniature cards or
book club. Find something. Yeah,
stained glass. I don't know. Whatever it is, like it's important to find that thing, because once you do that, balance then becomes like, well, I have work, I have family, and there's this other thing that I want to do, and I love sitting on my couch and watching, state football with my son. But I felt,
go Bucks, they just won.
I know, but I felt okay doing that because I'd gone on a 2.5 hour bike ride earlier.
Yeah,
and I had carved out a time and where everyone was busy doing their thing, and I got to do, it was like, I don't mind sitting here now because it actually feels really good.
There it is.
So,
well, let me ask one more question.
One more. We've been talking for a while.
I know we have been talking for.
Hopefully, someone will make it this
45. Yeah, I think they will. Normally, we got a few different guests. I'll make sure to share this because I know we started a little later. Sometimes people are waiting for it and they might miss it, but it's okay. This will be a definite gem. I'm gonna take a little snips from this and post it on the page. So, but I guess my last question would be, what is your greatest accomplishment, or do you feel?
I don't think it's happened yet.
That's an honest answer, and I can live with that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You can even do top three.
I mean, my wife and my kids are gonna.
I was about to say, if that is not in there, I'm gonna insert that in there for you. That's the one thing I was thinking about.
That's great. I'm really I love my family. I really was happy with our studio, with Workbook Studio. That and then my musical impact of being able to play music with the people that I got to play with, and the people that we got to share the stage with, and the people we got to meet through that, like all the way. I mean, that whole career, starting when I was 16 to, whatever. Like it took me to crazy weird cities, and I was trying to think about this the other day. We were on tour, and we played somewhere between Chicago and St. Louis, I'm pretty sure, and it was like a what do they call? Like they sell flowers there, like florists. Like
okay.
Like I think someone we played at like some weird like all ages, and it was like, or we played at Miami University one time. It was called the Honeycomb Hideout. It was like 3 flights of stairs, and we were like plugged in like Marshall half stacks for like the vocal PA, and the floor was shaking. It's just like that's 20-year-old memory. And I was just like, man, that was awesome. I think it sounded like crap, but then that was awesome.
Yeah.
Gig, the gig, I remember the gig we played in front of no one. So the band, being able to experience all that stuff, like I love that. Like I got to see some really cool places.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, that's 3. 2, then the studio, like being a part of the community really taught me like community is important to me. And I have not meant to be in Columbus this long, but I just have continued to be. But from 97 to 06, like being able to be a hub of really, and helping other people fulfill their dreams, is a really cool thing, which then translates to where I'm at now. Like that's what I get to do on a micro level, instead of, a band coming in and I'm helping this band, you're helping 45 students coming in,
you're helping the next generation
and then I'll have 38 students who are second semester, first year. Right. And, we get to lay out, and they hate my answer. And the question, what's the answer to almost every audio question?
Troubleshoot.
Well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
What's a better microphone for the kick drum?
That's an argument.
It depends.
It's an argument. It depends on what the room is, like all which sound you're going for.
So they're like, so they, and the little minor victories of like being able to like wrap a cable correctly, and and
spent a whole class, our first class, when we got to the studio. I tell everyone this story all the time because they're like, I told someone about wrapping cables correctly. They just got excited. I was just like, you're definitely an audio nerd.
Right.
I was like, we walked into the studio for the first time we went in there as a class. We were like, yes, we finally got to our second year. We're going to start the studio today. Yes. No, you're not. You're going to wrap cables for the first 20 minutes. Like, wait, what? Watch me over under. Just watch me right now. I was like, what? No, I'm serious. Like, oh. And we wrapped cables for like an hour. I said 20 minutes, but we all wrap cables for like an
So
hour.
you know how to do it, and then when you
Yes,
do
we
it,
do.
you know.
We won't. I've had. I've probably bought like 3 cables because I only have like a 1 input for the thing I use, but like for the inbox I use the interface. But I've only had like 3 cables for that since I've left hawking. That's 10 years, and these cables are $20 a piece. So $60 for 10 years is pretty damn
Right,
good to
just
me.
treat
So
them right.
yeah.
Yeah, so like that. So now like same thing, like watching all the students do cool things, and watching them grow. My favorite class is it's a second semester. So right as they're about to hit halfway, and watching light bulbs go off there in there, they're like, oh, like they start really getting things. I don't get to teach that class next semester, which I'm bummed about because I love watching that happen. But so that's what I get to do. So I'll throw that in there because it really is a part of my job that's just, there's a lot of, small things that can wear you down, and just personality wise, if students don't like me, or I get a new class, or I'm not feeling great, a student cannot feel great, walk in and hide for 50 minutes and go out, like I don't get to do that, so you never know, but I try really hard, and I don't hold anything back. I remember teaching the business class, and the students like, you just want us to like steal our ideas. I'm like, first of all, that's not how copyright works, and second of all, no. I mean, so we were in school 10 years ago, right? And in that business class, and at this point I forget who it was, but someone had the idea, which was at that time Netflix was the DVD, and it was their Netflix for vinyl was their business idea, and I'm like, that's a great idea, and you can make that idea, and there's like at least 2 competitors. I'm like, you had that idea years ago, you just didn't move on it,
And you could, I was like, there's no telling what if you would have took I forget the name of the guy that you guys told us about for Pandora, but if you'd have took his route and did 30 business plans, you'd be a millionaire right now, probably,
Yeah. So Tim Westergren, So I don't get to use that article anymore. It's a little dated, but it was great. But it's because he got told no. So
30 times. I remember 30 times. Like I remember him like 30
times.
different business plans in the course of like a decade or something like that. And like you would keep getting different teams, different interns over. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So like that's one of the most encouraging things you can tell someone. You think about the story of the guy who I forget the name of the guy who started Amazon, but everyone told him no too.
Bezos,
like and now he's like the number 1 traded company on the stock exchange.
Not Tim, what's his name? Bezos. What's his first name? Tim. No, that's not. What's his name?
I cannot remember.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah,
we're gonna have to look it up later. That's what I was like. I remember the people. Some of the people like in their stories stand out more than their names do. It's like the story of the person. Like I can remember Malcolm Gladwell because I had to keep looking him up over and over again. I remember the 10,000 hour rule, but to look at what he sees as like, oh, this is what defines success, or like these are the elements that play into people that are able to define their success. Like, okay, if I follow this, I'm already on the right track. It doesn't mean I already have it, but I'm already on the right track.
Yeah.
This guy who started Napster, or whatever, everyone laughed him out of the office. Shoot, we can look locally as Columbus, Ohio, and see that Lex Wexner, they laughed him out of the office when he came in talking about Easton. They were like, Easton, we have Northland, Southland, not Southland, Northland, Westland, Eastland already. We don't need Easton. Ha ha ha. And there is no more Eastland, there is no more Northland, there is no more Westland. That's all I will say about that. So if people don't see your vision or can't see like how far ahead you're thinking, like, because sometimes you do think, as a business or a creative entrepreneur, you think ahead, and when you get in that space and you can't find all of the pieces, if you can find some of them, just keep them as close as you can and just keep moving forward. But Brother Neal, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Once again, this is the Warden's Midwest podcast. Actually, could you tell them where to follow? I know the Cap Muse Tech and maybe
on Instagram we're Cap CAPMUSTECH Cap Muse Tech, and then Capital Music Technology on YouTube, Cap Muse Tech on Twitter. So, and on Facebook too. So I mean, it comes up. We work like really hard. So we put up a lot of good tutorials, both for our students and a lot of other stuff on our YouTube channel.
Actually, if you guys want to, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. There was what's it called, the Mini?
Thera Mini.
Yeah, Thera Mini. He did a little tutorial view. I'm not pointing at it
so
correctly,
cool.
But he did a little tutorial view of how to use it. I'm on the wrong side. Okay, over here.
Yeah.
did a little tutorial view of how to actually use it and all the different sounds you can use with it. So it was pretty cool. We I guess for the rest of the time I'm going to play some music via my phone, so it might not sound the greatest, but you will also be able to hear the stylings of Wojet Music, a product of one of those environments that Brother Neil was just talking about. So yeah, if you guys want to take a brief look at that, and I will play the short version of Hardships by Wojet Music. Check it out. It's actually coming through really clear. I wanted to say something more, but I didn't want you to stop. I think what's going on here? Is my phone dead? That would suck. How about you? Are you on? Sorry about that, folks. I'll play something for you here. Actually, you know what? We can probably play it off of. Just pick it up. Would you mind queuing up the browser? I guess I'll just play it through the monitor.
I'm looking at it. But that's what's being broadcast now. Make it, man.
So you guys know how to find Wojet Music now. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Is the
What do you? Oh, should be. Okay. Oh, well, the output's set to the inbox. So I don't know what it's going to do.
Nope. Crap. Well,
You'll have to add that.
Yeah, I'll add it in post. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I think you, if you wanted to show them again, I guess.
That's all right. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate all the love and support. And we will be back next week, Wednesday. We'll be in Chicago at the Black Couch Studio. If not, we'll be somewhere else remotely. I think there might be traveling going on coinciding. So thank you all again for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. If you like what you've heard here, look forward to much, much more here in the future. You can follow us, obviously, at Wardens Midwest. But if you're already tuned in, just hit that subscribe button and click the notifications, and we will keep you up to date with more creative entrepreneurs as we cover the Midwest. Much love. Should be a. It should be. Awesome. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, instrument. Yeah, just click in.